Time to talk essay 4. Now, the goal of this is a little bit complicated because of the number of sources that you have to use. You have to use a minimum of 5 total sources. So make sure you understand that. It's 5 total sources, but they're going to be broken up into 2 categories. The first category is primary works, and primary we think of as like original creative works. Secondary, those are the other sources. Secondary sources are ones that you use to talk about primary sources. For example, let's say you went to see a movie and it was an art film and it was a little confusing. You're not sure what the major themes are. You might go online and find, a high quality film review from Slash Film or the AV Club or RogerEbert.com or something like that. Read the film review by this professional film critic. And through their analysis and discussion, you now understand the film better. So the film is the primary original creative work, and the review is a secondary work that helps you understand the primary work better. So you have to have 2 primary sources. You can have more than 2. Don't go much more than 3 unless they're small, because it gets a little bit too surface level discussion of lots of primary sources and not enough depth on those. Okay. So one of them is James Weldon Johnson's novella, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. Keep in mind, this is not an actual autobiography. It is a work of fiction. So the main character in it, who is unnamed, and we refer to him when we talk about him as the ex-colored man, capitalized, he is not James Weldon Johnson. Okay, so if he's trying to keep his name anonymous and then he signs the book, he's not doing a very good job on that. So the Ex-Colored Man is a fictional character. The entire story itself is fictional. It's James Weldon Johnson working through some interesting things about race in America in the 19 teens and 20s. Okay. The other primary work you have to find yourself. I'm not giving it to you. You have to find it. And it's got to be one that you can talk about it in connection to Ex-Colored Man. Think of it this way. You didn't write about one poem for essay 1, you wrote about more than one. And together you kind of played them off of each other and came up with an interesting discussion. For essay 3, something similar. You had 2 plays, you had the film, you could choose 2 or 3 of those, you used characters from different ones to talk. So you're used to writing about more than one text, but I've always given them to you, or at least given you choices. Now this one, you've got to find it yourself and you got to do it quick. There is a list on the prompt itself of some different themes that you can focus on for writing about Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. You then just have to find another primary creative work. It could be a TV show, it could be a video game. Students have written really good stuff on video games, The Last of Us or something. The TV show, Last of Us, manga comics, anime TV shows, paintings, music albums. The list is really endless. I just don't want you to choose another novel. I don't want you to take something that you've either already read, but it was a while ago and you don't have time to reread it, or you haven't read it yet at all, and you've got a short amount of time to get that reading in. That's not going to work. That's asking you to do too much. If there is a novel that you've read, but it was a while ago, let's say, Pride and Prejudice, Last of the Mohicans, something like that, and you want to write about it, another option is to find a good film adaptation of that. So you get the same characters, you get the same story, you get the same themes, but you can watch the film in a couple hours rather than rereading the novel over 10 or 12 hours or 15 hours. And you can work with that in some real interesting ways. The first 2 of your 5 sources are primary original creative works. I give you one, you have to find the other. The other 3 are secondary sources. They can be film reviews, they can be video game reviews, they can be music reviews from Rolling Stone or Variety, or they can be scholarly articles from the databases available through our library at RCC. You can look for sources on Google Scholar. You can use Google Advanced Search looking for academic PDF articles about your movie or your comic or whatever. There's graphic novels. I mean, there's just so many things you can talk about. So keep that in mind, that there is a wide variety of primary sources that you can choose from, and there's a pretty good variety of secondary ones. Now, secondary sources, I give you 3 as examples. You are allowed to use one of them if you want, but you still have to find at least 2 of your own. It is real important that you find 2 of your own. So if you have 3 and one of them's mine, great. If you use a couple of mine, let's say you find 2 different ones of the 3 that I've given you on Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, and you think they work pretty well, you can use both of them You still have to find 2, in which case you're going to have 4. Now, there is going to be a PowerPoint available to you guys on how to use secondary sources, but I'll give you a super quick hint now. First, when you use a secondary source, you do not want it to speak for you. You do not want it to start your paragraphs. You don't want it to be, hey, this guy had a really good point, and I agree. That's not how it works. What you want to do is say, here's a point I want to make. And then here's how I see that point being developed in 1 or 2 of these primary sources, this film, James Weldon Johnson's novella, whatever. Talk about them. And then you bring in a secondary source who backs you up, who basically says, you know what, this guy's smart, he's got the right idea. And it's the big guy behind you going, yeah, when you want to make a point. You know, let's say you're sitting in a cafeteria or something at school, you get up, you go to the bathroom, you come back, somebody's taking your seat, you want them to leave, and you say, hey, can you please leave? They might not want to do that. If you've got a really big guy behind you that says, move, that guy's probably going to leave. You're going to get your seat back. So your secondary sources are that big guy standing behind you. They don't go in front of you. They do not speak for you, but they back you up. Okay, so that's the key. Now, what am I hoping you'll be able to get from this? One is you don't have to find fancy literary stuff for it to be a text worthy of analysis. There is some incredibly good pop culture work out there, whether it's graphic novels or TV shows or video games, that have compelling characters, compelling themes, interesting stories. They make good social commentary, and they're worthy of your attention. That might also make it a little bit more fun. You get to watch a movie as your second source rather than read another book that's been given to you by an English professor or something like that. It's building off of what we've already been doing in terms of having more than one text, working with a central theme, and how can we sort of get it right? How can we make our point about this larger concept, this larger issue of, human response to crisis, or, social degradation, how an individual responds to oppression or subjugation. What can we say about that idea using James Weldon Johnson's book and maybe a TV show that you've found, Lovecraft Country or whatever it might be? What it all comes down to is you are going to have secondary sources. You are going to have primary sources. You are going to have at least 5 sources total. You are going to be working with them together to create a rather long and complicated and interesting paper. It's really the culmination of a lot of the skills that you've been acquiring over the course of this course so far. What should you do first? Dive into James Weldon Johnson's novella. Really try to read as deeply and quickly as you can. As a quick understanding of it, go watch the video walkthrough where I give you sort of a pre-reading understanding of what the book is about. That's going to be an important one for you to check out, understand, and then go from there. Once you've got your ideas, like here's some themes I'm interested in from the autobiography of an ex-colored man, then you start looking as quickly as possible for a primary source, movie you've seen, TV show you've watched, graphic novel, video game you've played, whatever, that works with similar themes. Remember that it doesn't have to be specifically about American racism. It doesn't have to be about the Black experience with racism that James Weldon Johnson explores. It doesn't have to be any of that. It doesn't have to be in the same time period. Like, you can be all over the place, just the same way that you guys made great connections between Anna Castillo and Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who were writing almost a century apart. One is white, one is Latina, and their experiences are very different, but there's enough commonality that they could be talked about together. Okay, same with, Cummings and Denise Smith, or you get the idea. Once you've got those two, then you start finding the secondary sources that you can use to back you up. Come up with your ideas, go search to see where you can find some interesting film reviews or book reviews, or, for graphic novels or things like that. There's really good quality writing out there on comic books and music. Look up what your artist is interested in, really dig into some possibilities there. And as you do that, you're going to find that there are some common themes that come up that you can then use to talk in some meaningful, thoughtful ways about your primary sources. If you need help, ask. That's what I'm here for. It's why I do this. It's not because I love essays so much. It's because I want to help you guys achieve your goals. So make sure that you reach out if you need help. Take care.